again Struck. Today I'm bringing you another build video for Warhammer Chaosbane, and this one is for Elontir the Mage. So this is a setup that's all about mobility, and I decided to call it the Riftwalker Elementalist because its main source of damage, the bread and butter of the build, is Step Between Worlds. With Step Between Worlds Heroic, which comes from the Bel Khoradris set, together with the whitening falling off from the Bel Khoradris set every now and then and hitting nearby enemies, and together with the aura from Phoenix Herald, we get a ton of damage over time going on for this setup. And I've decided to try stacking damage over time gear blessings, and it did seem to work out well for me. I have not yet tried it with flat damage blessings, but it's definitely worth testing it for yourself if you wanna see whether the flat damage would be better. But a viable option would be for Chaos 7 to try using this combination of items: Soulfire, Phoenix Herald, Bel Khoradris set, Phase Shift Amulet, and then maybe Ring of Hotek and Ring of Khain's Fury are not bad as the ring choices. And it just stacks up the damage coming from lots of different places. I am including in the gear segment more information about different setups for farming and for pushing damage wise. So you want damage over time or flat damage blessings on the gear for when pushing, for when doing harder content, and when you are doing easier content and you're farming with amulet of contempt for wood quality based on crit chance. You want crit chance in the gear. This works for both ways, so I'm mentioning both setups. So let's just show you a bit more about the skills, the god skills, the gear, and then at the end there's gonna be some more gameplay for those of you who wanna watch it. For the skills that this build of mine uses, I decided to take Phantom Blade as generator, but you can try and use anything else you think is better for your playstyle. Here Breath of Fire could be swapped out for any other skill, preferably an energy consuming skill, so we can kind of heal ourselves via this one. Here this is perfect because it moves around with us, and since we are quite mobile with this build, it's good to have a god skill that follows us, and this fits perfectly. This one to keep doing some AoE area based damage over time, and to regenerate HP and magic and energy. And then this the bread and butter of the build, Step Between Worlds, so we can keep zipping and zapping through the map and porting and leaving a mark that damages the enemy. So basically you teleport and then you leave this, but then if you're fighting an enemy here you can spam a lot of those, and all of those would keep damaging the enemy. Etheric Vortex, I strongly suggest the Superior Etheric Vortex. First, it's good, it slows the enemies and their projectiles, and the superior version makes the enemies take extra damage. For the passive skills, Quake Shield Masters, extra damage reduction, and we get healed when we use energy, pretty nice. Quake Mastery, this increases the magical damage and increases the spell generation. This is our main source of damage together with the whitenings from the Bel Khoradris set. And maybe we can even add some extra... Wait, what is this glitch? That's an annoying glitch. We can add some extra damage as a result of the Phoenix Herald, so pretty nice. Constant damage over time. Now Action Mastery, fire damage is increased, each nearby burning enemy increases critical hit chance. I take this not for the fire damage that much as rather for the crit chance, which is nice. Of course we do have some things that are fire like this one that would benefit from it, but that's not the main reason why I take this. Feel free to, if you want to experiment with it and need some points, instead of taking this, to kind of get this crit chance, or a potion of a sort if you don't need the crit chance. Master of Equilibrium Superior consuming energy has a chance to reduce any current cooldowns. Using a spell with cooldown has a chance to regenerate energy. This is nice to keep regenerating energy when using the Vortex, the White, and to reduce their cooldowns when spamming Step Between Worlds or Breath of Fire or whatever other skill you decide to replace Breath of Fire with. Arcane Secret Superior, burning enemies take more magical damage. We are burning the enemies all the time as a result of the Phoenix Herald and magical damage, of course. This one main source of damage would be stacking those together with this 25%, and then dealing magical damage increases fire spell damage and vice versa, which we are doing all the time. Bel Khoradris deals magical whitenings and the Phoenix Herald deals fire AoE around us. So this should be it for the skills, and for legendary ranks I prefer to go for 15% chance in legendary punishment and the rest into power, but you might wanna get more chance. I think all the dots and things hitting the enemies constantly proc this, so instead of going for 20-25% I go for 15, but as I said, pick whatever you like. Alternatively, I would suggest legendary reinforcement, since you do have 2 skills with cooldown, or legendary crushing to make them deal less damage, or this one, legendary endurance to make sure you take less damage. Probably this would be good for later when you can kind of get the healing to be stronger, because this would mean that you're gonna be able to heal when using your Step Between Worlds. So if we make it 15% chance, this would have chance to heal us. Of course my HP is now full, so I can't see it, but while we do that we would have a chance to heal. So this is an interesting synergy. If you want healing, it is worth testing this one. But yeah, that's it for this. Let's go and check the god skills. The god skill tree I've decided to set up in such a way. Here we only take 4 points for arcane manifestation, so we can have this thing moving around with us as we teleport. Then we go all the way here to get this extra crit damage and damage. Those 3 points are definitely nice. There could be a better way to set it up and maybe remove some of the points here and place them somewhere here, but I'm gonna just look into that. Here we go all the way to this crit damage, and we do need arcane secrets, but maybe there would be a version of the build that would be able to invest into arcane secret mastered and get some more crit damage on the way. The thing is, there's 35 and another 35 crit damage, so there's just 70 crit damage more to get if we keep investing into these 3, and that 70 is not worth losing this 35 and this 35 for just 3 points invested to branch out there. So I think this is the maximized crit damage if you want to take this one, and the difference is just 10% damage here, so we can live without this skill. You can experiment, but taking this would mean sacrificing 105 crit damage. So if you want to get rid of those 105 crit damage and get this extra 10% damage taken, take it. You will need to slightly rework some of the things to allocate the points, or what you can do is you can equip in one of your secondary armor slots a Blade of Azire to make this heroic, and you can make this heroic with Scepter of Ice, and making this heroic with Scepter of Ice would give you extra 5 points. So currently that is possible in the game, to equip an item in an alternative slot like this. And you can see I immediately made the Blade of Azire Heroic Phantom Blade and the Scepter of Ice Heroic Ethereal Breath which I can replace this to get some extra points, and this would help you get closer to equipping this skill. You'll probably still have to downgrade something like maybe this or whatever else, but that's just an option. Wanted to put it out there. So that's it for the god skills. For the gear picks of the build, needless to say, Bel Khoradris set is what we want. We want a Soulfire, a Phoenix Herald, Phase Shift Amulet, and I would suggest Oath Ring of Resonance, but it's not a must-have, and Ring of Radiance is not also the best thing you can have, but it does help. What I do think is perfect fit is Ring of Hotek. Ring of Hotek is what you want, and you can get that Ring of Hotek over here. I'm not sure why I had the Radiance here, but yeah, Ring of Hotek is what you want, and something else that could probably be good is the Dragon's Blood Ring or Ring of Khain's Fury. So this is kind of what you might want. Ring of Khain's Fury and Ring of Hotek, very good choices for this build. This gives you a chance to get damage bonus reduction. This gives you a chance to heal health and energy, so amazing choices. This gives you nearby enemies taking 50% damage, and you're kind of close if you want to do damage to the enemies with this setup. This gives you AoE, storm that keeps hitting the enemies, and it also increases magic damage by 50%, together with the heroic step between words, which is the main damage dealing skill. So this burns the enemies around you all the time, so it helps proccing, as I said in the skills, things like arcane secrets and things like arcane binding and things like action mastery. So we burn the enemies, you make them take more magical damage, and we get crit chance. And we also deal magical damage via this and other things. What you want for the roses on the helmet, you definitely want cooldown reduction there. It's the only armor piece from where you can get cooldown reduction. And for the other stats you want armor, HP. It's not bad to get cost reduction if you plan on healing while using energy. Otherwise, just go for big energy pool, and leaving the cost reduction out of the equation would mean more heals when you use step between worlds or whatever other energy spender you put here. So cost reduction is worth skipping on if you want to have bigger heals when consuming energy, but keep in mind that you won't have as much uptime. So that's up to you to decide whether you want more uptime of the spamming or whether you want to heal for more. So armor, HP would be key things in any piece. Together with some resistance to damage over time would not be bad, and energy. So preferably go for armor and HP and energy, and if you can get damage over time. On the helmet, cooldown reduction on the other pieces, nothing too fancy except for the legs and with speed, and then here you can get damage stats. Here you want damage and damage over time together with armor and HP. Preferably energy and crit damage would be perfect, so something like this that I've equipped is amazing as rows. Here you could skip out on the speed if you really don't think you want it, because we're teleporting all the time, so focus on the other stuff. On the weapon here, on the Soulfire, you want armor piercing, cooldown reduction, damage over time, health, and crit damage. So this is kind of close to a perfect row, maybe even a perfect row. You can sacrifice the crit damage for something else if you want to, such as maybe, I'm not sure if it can even roll with energy, but it's a good roll, that one I've got here. On this one you want cooldown reduction, you want crit hit chance, because this cannot get crit hit chance, this gets crit damage, but this can get crit chance and crit damage. Oh, maybe actually, yeah, I don't think this can get crit chance. Let me check if if I've got any ones with crit chance. Yeah, definitely the blade cannot get crit chance. So on the staff, you do want the crit chance there, you do want the cooldown reduction, you do want damage and damage over time and HP. So basically the same things as here, except you want crit chance in the mix, so you can sacrifice some of the crit damage and you would be fine. What's left is the accessories. Phase shift amulet, as I said, would be perfect, and you want as rose cooldown reduction preferably. You don't really need it that much for this build, but being able to spam this and this more often together with blinding white and etheric vortex more often would be better for you. It's not a priority to focus on the cooldown reduction, but you want crit chance, you want armor, you want flat damage, maybe damage over time, and maybe things like energy would also, and HP would also help a lot. Now the Ring of Hotek applies the exact same things as for the amulet, and the same goes for the second ring. So for alternative picks, if you don't have a good phase shift amulet, you can try something such as Amulet of the Purifying Flame, or maybe even Vortex Amulet to boost this skill, though this is not the main damage part of the build. But if you don't have a good phase shift amulet, just take anything else that you think would be fine. Now there is an alternative setup, but I'm gonna quickly tell you about the rings and then about the alternative setup for speed farming. So for the Ring of Hotek, if you don't have a good Ring of Hotek or Ring of Khain's Fury, good choices would be something like Ring of Resonance, which you can get from the invasions, which is over from this part of the invasions. Let's go to rank 1 when I've got it unlocked. So you can go all the way to here, but you need to unlock this one and this one and this one and this one to get 60% corruption resistance, and maybe some other nodes that debuff the enemy and so on. So once you unlock Ring of Resonance, it's not a bad choice, but it's not the perfect one for this build. Other things that are good: Ring of Denial is a good alternative, Ring of Radiance is also not so bad, Dragon Ring also a decent alternative for damage reduction, and Dragon's Butt is good if you can just use this for a second and then get that bonus damage. If you can do that on bosses, it's gonna give you some extra 50% damage, so you can stack this together with Khain's Fury and get extra damage, or just stack this with that one or whatever. Crystalline is also nice, so you can try stacking Crystalline together with Ring of Denial. Not a bad choice. But yeah, those are the two rings I strongly suggest taking. So for the alternative setup, there are some things to say, which is blessings wise, you want crit damage over time and maximum HP. This is how I set up the build. Alternatively, if you don't want this, you can go for flat damage, and for an alternative setup for farming, you want Amulet of Contempt, and you want everything to be blessed with crit chance, crit damage and damage, where you're prioritizing the flat damage over the crit damage, but you want the crit chance because this gives you wood based on crit chance. So what I do is I have alternative items with crit chance, so I can just quickly show you here. I've got some gauntlets blessed with crit chance somewhere, not sure which one it is, one of those maybe, but let's just quickly show you. So here I've got this one with wood quality and crit chance, and I might have a helmet with wood quality and crit chance. So you see, you can keep a secondary set if you want for farming, and if you don't want to keep respecking all the time the blessings, because it is costly. So I'm gonna quickly demonstrate the different combinations for all of those things I've mentioned. Just need to swap out some stuff. So what you do is you start placing an item, and let's pick something that's from this set if we can, or let's just pick a ring. So for the setup with damage over time, you want something like this. And you get a lot of HP if you do it that way. If you want it more balanced, you can go and put yellow and green in the middle, and you're gonna get more crit damage, and I don't think it's worth it. I think this is the better option. You do that on all pieces. This is my suggestion. The damage over time doesn't change regardless how you do it, but the HP does change and the crit damage does change based on whether you have more yellow or more green. But if you want to try a flat damage setup instead of damage over time, what you would do is you would do this. And for more damage, you go with more reds. For more HP, you go with greens. Or if you want a balanced setup, you do this. This is the balanced setup, and this is the setup with more HP, less damage. So decide which one you prefer. And then for the crit chance setup, I strongly suggest going for that setup here. For more flat damage, less crit damage. So this gives you up to 1.6 thousand damage. You can do something like this for the crit chance setup and get a balance between crit damage and crit chance, or even do it that way and get the maximized amount of crit damage. But I think you want to maximize the damage, so I strongly suggest red, yellow, red both sides for the farming setup. And those are the three things worth mentioning. I played with the damage over time setup, so that's kind of how it was, but you might want to play with something else as a setup. When it comes to playing the build, it is not that difficult. It's basically spamming your step between worlds and in between, trying to use the god skill whenever it's ready. And I also suggest on elites and bosses trying to either use the blinding light underneath its feet for extra damage over time, together with the vortex dome above it, so it can take more damage and it can take damage from the blinding light together with your marks. Or you can save the blinding light and use it for when you really need some bit of extra regeneration of energy and health. I guess I'm just gonna leave that up to you to decide. And yeah, when needing energy, you can try and weave in some melee attacks in between the teleports if you think it's not too risky. Otherwise you might have to find some leftover enemies after each fight and just melee one of them to get some extra energy. Or you can include a ranged attack skill like the Akshi missile, the fireball, to help you regenerate energy from a good distance. If you keep teleporting in the same spot, you keep leaving the marks, which means you keep leaving damage over time, creating fields. So this is how we actually do shit tons of damage on bosses and enemies in a quick manner. So you would just have to be very careful with bosses. You would have to be very careful to not let yourself run out of energy in the worst possible time. So weave in some extra energy regenerating attacks in between the teleport runs. And here is how a single mistake can kill you if you kind of do it like me, leaving yourself without energy in the worst possible moment when the boss is attacking. And it was actually a boss fight where the boss was very low HP as well. And here is the second attempt on this boss. I decided to just go for a more aggressive approach at the start and try and burst him quickly down from the get-go. Then I did have some times where I needed to kind of kite a bit to regenerate to get my potion cooldown back up, but you can see it's basically trying to read his attack movements. Most bosses, actually all bosses, do have some sort of tails when they're gonna charge an attack, so you have some time to dodge it, and the longer it takes for the enemy to charge an attack, the stronger that attack most likely would be, and the more likely it would be to one-shot you. This build, thanks to the setup I decided to use speed damage over time, has pretty decent HP, because each blessing piece on the armor can give us up to 8000 HP per armor piece. So I hope this suits you. I hope you enjoyed not just for the farming setup with crit chance and amulet of contempt, but also to try and do some regular runs with the damage over time or the flat damage versions. So if you've enjoyed it and you want to be notified when I upload other builds for games that are wooters, such as Chaosbane, Torchlight Frontiers, Wolves and Borderlands 3, and maybe some more in the future, you can subscribe to my channel. And you can also let me know whether you liked or disliked the video by hitting the corresponding buttons, and feel free to let me know in the comment section what you liked or didn't like, or whether you found a better way to synergize this build. I would like to hear from you how you think the build can be better if you do have a better option. So thanks everyone for watching this video, keep it cool folks, and until next time, goodbye.